Hello and welcome to Impact TV. Impact TV, a Publicis Sapient and Constellation research joint initiative, is a limited series focused on tech as a force for good and its positive impact on business and people. In today's episode, we'll delve into the topic of humanizing AI commerce, and we'll explore the powerful synergies between technology and the human touch, demonstrating how this fusion can impact the digital commerce landscape and, most importantly, the people it serves. Our panel of experts today will lead us through a great conversation on commerce innovation. Joining me in this exciting discussion are two of our guests and my co-host, Wang. Ray is the chairman, founder, and principal analyst of Constellation Research.
Well, hey, thank you very much, Teresa. And I'm here with Teresa Barreira, is the chief marketing and communication officer at the leading global digital consultancy, Publicis Sapient. Barreira's creative thinking, coupled with 25 years of global B2B marketing expertise, has enabled her to break the mold of traditional marketing for technology and services company. Now we're here with two amazing guests. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. First, Simon Jones, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about today?
Hi, I am Simon, and I am based in London, and I work at Publicis Sapient as our data and AI lead.
Yes, you're doing some amazing stuff and really helping clients get into the world of AI, the realistic world of AI. Indy, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Indy. I'm coming in from the Pacific Northwest up here in Seattle, Washington. Issaquah is the home office of where I work, which is Costco. And currently I'm the Assistant Vice President for Data Products and Data Science.
That's amazing. One of our favorite companies. So thank you for being here today. All right. With that, we'll get started with Simon. So let's put Simon on and we'll join you again in a little bit, Indy. So.
All right, Simon, nice to see you again. How are you today?
Very good. Thanks, Teresa. And you?
Great. So generative AI is one of the most disruptive technologies and is getting a lot of attention across a lot of industries and governments globally. Everybody's talking about it. We have seen a lot of adoption this year across many industries and many functions in companies. How do you think will impact and disrupt commerce?
Yeah, well, I think, just like e-commerce disrupted like analog commerce all the time, I guess before the internet, people bought from people. Most transactions were face-to-face. And for the last 20 or so years, people have been buying from machines. And, those machines have been taking our orders. And, the reason why e-commerce took off, because it gave an element of convenience to consumers. Convenience always drives adoption. And I think AI commerce or e-commerce powered by AI is significantly going to increase convenience again. And therefore, my best guess would be that it's going to drive adoption and disrupt e-commerce as we know it today.
That's a great point, Simon. And really, we're seeing that, that need to actually create personalization or that one-to-one relationship or even get to better context. But why should organizations believe that generative AI is going to be that game changer? Last year, we're all doing NFT POCs and we're all talking about Web3. Is this the one that's going to do it? Is this the game changer?
Well, I know some people are out on Web3 and some people are still in, but, unlike Web3 technologies, which I think really are like technologies looking for an application. Generative AI is a much different beast. It's something already in 100 million, 200 million people's hands. And the applications are pretty practical. It's our kids, homework. It's our parents round the world cruise. Everyone of every generation has kind of found a way to use it in their private life, let alone their commercial life. So it's a pretty practical technology based on allowing you to do things faster and a little bit smarter, maybe.
Yeah, it is. I got to tell you, I am obsessed with it since it came on market in late last year. I use it for everything. It's like my companion. But back to commerce, how would it be difference between AI commerce versus just e-commerce? How will it different from and the shopping experience? How is it different? What should we expect?
Good question. Well, Nielsen have been studying kind of shopping habits over the decades. And prior to the internet, the average US household took an hour a week driving to the store and an hour a week shopping from the store, the grocery store, not obviously all stores. In e-commerce, that kind of same trip has been reduced on average to 45 minutes a week. So, families are saving over an hour a week. And, we're always told today that time is the most precious commodity that we have. So you can see why the adoption is there. And I think in the UK, at least, e-commerce is 30% of retail sales. So pretty high adoption overall in quite a limited period of time. I think with AI commerce, and if anyone who's played or seen some of the demos where, you can create a meal plan for the week for a family with certain dietary restrictions or certain requirements, and it will generate a bunch of meals and then turn those meals into ingredients, turn that ingredients into a shopping list, and you're one click away from ordering. Well, if that takes me 45 minutes today, then if that's going to take me 2 minutes in the future and a few changes, then, that's not, 10% faster, that's like 10x faster. And I think that's people are going to see now. For some, it's the kind of, we're at the top of the Gartner hype cycle, I guess, today, and some will play. But I think, inch by inch, we'll start to see people adopting this, particularly when it brings them so much utility. Like I said, it's not like a flashy, trashy technology. It's actually quite useful to people in basic ways. So if I can create a healthy meal plan and I can put that into a shopping list and buy at the right amounts, and I can shop around on price even, that's pretty valuable to any household that's trying to manage their grocery bills.
Have you seen anyone doing that today?
There's, right from the get-go, I think OpenAI, one of their first plugins was Instacart, and that was pretty much available on Instacart. So anyone could do it. Now, I don't know what the stats are about how many using it, but that plugin, and Instacart is obviously connected to a bunch of retailers themselves. So, if the retailers aren't thinking of their own solutions to this, they're going to get intermediated by these marketplaces like Instacart, who are going to be upstream and potentially taking their cut of that basket every single time. So like whether consumers are doing it today or not, there's definitely like a first mover advantage or an incumbent advantage to being there. At the time, it was on the plugins for OpenAI, but as now more of these models are connected live in real time to the internet, you don't even need that anymore. So, whilst consumer adoption, I guess only the early adopters are really pushing this. The direction of travel is pretty clear to see. And like if we're thinking about risk, the bigger risk is to do nothing. Like it's a small risk to experiment and build this functionality out.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like the convenience, the value exchange that's there, the ability to actually take that and even compare on pricing, which people are doing all together when you actually put this together. But are people going to adopt this? From AI commerce, is it going to be a niche that only a few like really big companies are going to take advantage of, or is it going to be available to everybody?
Well, yeah, it's a really good question. Again, I think like it's been rare in history that like a technology is in people's hands before it's been in businesses' hands. So like businesses are learning at the same time as consumers, whereas unlike everything else like cloud or even building mobile apps or building websites, going back over the decades of digital disruption, that's always been a business generate something and then they give it to the public or they sell it to the public. This here is available to the public at the same time. So, maybe differently here, we're seeing this in parallel, people figuring out, we sometimes call it technical overhang. Like we don't know what the functionality is yet. And people are like finding that out. I'm convinced that the most powerful AI user is probably a power seller on Etsy. They probably live in, the middle of the Midwest somewhere, and they figured it all out. They figured out how to power their life through generative AI, where big business is still trying to figure out what, power users today are trying to do. So I think as long as
adoption of technology here. So
yeah, and I think as long as the barriers are low in terms of the pricing, well, these things are kind of fairly cheap or free at the moment. But I think it will go from generative AI being a thing at the moment. So I want to go and do some AI. I want to talk to AI. So it being quite ubiquitous and probably being like implemented everywhere we go. So it will be unlikely in the future, I don't know how many years, that you would go to Kmart, Walmart, and there would not be some sort of generative AI boosted search functionality or assistant on that site that would help you. So you wouldn't necessarily have your own AI. All big technologies are going to start to integrate this technology into the user experience, into the interface, and that's where that convenience is really going to come, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think you're absolutely right, because it was released to the general population, I think, why it became so ubiquitous. And the adoption rate has really accelerated. But thinking about companies, right? What do they need to do? How do they prepare themselves for this new future? Or where customers might not even have to leave their houses.
Yeah, so we sometimes refer to 2023 as the year of the quiet before the storm. The fact that OpenAI launched ChatGPT on November 30th, 2022, it's too late for the budgetary cycle for this year. Any of our clients that have capital expenditure, CapEx, they have to set that budget generally in September and October. So by the time this became a thing, it was too late for this year. So for businesses, we haven't seen a huge amount of large-scale adoption just because they haven't budgeted for this year. So unless they've got a real cost out play, it will be hard to get any of those things signed off. We think that will change in 2024. But we spent 6-7 months now talking to executive clients, and I would say there are 5 main questions that clients are wrestling with, and they feel like they need to get an answer to before they can commit, before they can go forward. So if you permit me, I'll just go through the 5 kind of questions.
Yeah, I'd love to know what those are. So
the first thing is, who's accountable within the organization? So is this a new role? Is this a new department? Or is this an extension of an existing person's department? So should the CIO run the program? Should the chief digital officer run the program? The second thing is, where's the value? Where am I going to find the high value use cases that are going to unlock value for me? And it's not just high value, but also low risk. I don't want to go after the high risk, high reward, high return. I also got to be careful about the risk. And that's the third area, is how do I mitigate and avoid risk? How can I not expose myself to that risk? And a lot of clients talk about third mover advantage. I want someone else to go first. I want someone else to be on the front page of the newspapers and the websites. And then we'll learn from that and we'll leapfrog them after they've made those mistakes. So it's generally a flow. Fourth area is around communications. What do I say to my employees? I'm giving you access to these tools, or I'm not giving you access to these tools. What do I say to my shareholders? What do I say to the street? There's been a lot of research recently that says if you mention AI, and the mentions of AI in quarterly earnings are going up and up and up at the moment, companies that mention AI are rewarded with higher increases off the back of their quarterly earnings at the moment than those that don't. Now, that just may be a blip, but that's an interesting finding nonetheless. And finally, a big question is really around, how is this going to affect my workforce? Big organizations generally have lots of employees. There's going to be a lot of upskilling. There's going to be questions about roles in the future. Do I have the right ones? Do I need these ones? Do I need new ones? So I think those kind of 5 areas of who's responsible, where's the value, what are the risks, how do we communicate this to people, and how do I need to change and upskill my workforce? Those are 5 big questions that clients really feel the one they want to answer before moving forward and betting the house on this.
No, this makes a lot of sense. And but I'm still going to ask a question. I think that's important here, which is, for those who still need to be convinced on Gen AI and the impact on their business, what would you say? Is it going to help me improve my margins? Is it going to help me improve my loyalty? What are the hard facts here? So. Yeah,
I think that there's a wide variety of applications, but I would say the dominant style of application at the moment, the use cases are really automation style things. So things where there's inefficiency in a business and we can clean that up. The industry went through a generation of robotic process automation in 2017, 2018. The smart version of that is now taking place. So, we all know the situation where our colleagues send us a 30 megabyte Excel file on a Friday afternoon and expect us to do something with it and then send that on. Now, is that the most efficient way of sharing information and getting people? But most companies still base, half of their workflow, all their finance department is based on Excel. So, there are things that can be done to improve that. So I would think a lot of efficiency plays are most likely initial landing spots for business. And any business owner or business exec can automatically knows where the kind of waste is in their business and the things that they should have automated already, but they haven't yet. That's a great application for generative AI. I think the other area is really in the customer experience and improving that for consumers. And again, it goes back to this point of respecting their time and being convenient. If you can make things 10% more convenient, you're going to get 10% more conversion, I would guess, at some sort of trade-off. So anything we could do to move forward the experience, again, that's kind of fairly low-hanging fruit for businesses, and we'll start to see more of it. I guess one of the challenges, Ray, is Like, once upon a time, facial recognition on your phone was called AI, but we don't call it AI anymore. We just call it kind of technology. And I think the trouble is AI is always like tomorrow's technology today. It's like it's a fleeting term. As soon as we've implemented it, people won't consider it AI. It's just consider it technology. And I think rather than there being silver bullets out there, I think it's kind of small incremental improvements is more likely how we'll feel it in our lives.
Yeah,
I think background, it'll be ambient, right? Yeah. And you're getting faster, better, and cheaper here. So which is rare. You only get 2 out of 3 usually. So
yeah.
I think with ChatGPT, we're getting close to that. Not considering it AI, but just technology now. I feel because it's so embedded. I feel for me, I use it all the time.
Well, and I think also as well as, what will happen technically with the models is over time, they're going to get smaller and cheaper to use, and they'll end up being run on your device. If the device is still a smartphone in the future, so you won't have to go to a cloud service to, generate a response. It will be generated off the microprocessor in your phone itself. And so, that's happens with most technologies. It gets smaller and smaller until, they fit on a device. And then we'll be using them without the need to be even connected to the internet or having a strong Wi-Fi signal.
Oh, that's great. Well, Simon, I have one last question for you. And you are not American, you are British.
Correct.
So I thought this was a very good fitting question for you. Next week is American Thanksgiving, the biggest shopping day. Now, I believe consumer spending, it is slowing down, but I'd love to get your predictions. What do you see for next week? What do you predict?
Well, I guess, with my naive knowledge of Black Friday and all those things, I think that we're obviously coming off the back of lockdowns. And I guess like 2022 is really a bounce back year after that type of thing. So the question is whether the trajectory will continue going up. And maybe generative AI won't have much to do with it, but I'm sure that you'll see an increase in consumer spending around Thanksgiving this year again. It's because it's just such a well-oiled machine, and it's kind of there's so much focus for many companies. A lot of their years are based on it, or at least their Q4 results begin with Thanksgiving and go through to Christmas and the holidays. So given the fact that so many big companies plan for so long about this, I would assume they've got things in hand. And despite a background of cost of living crisis or geopolitical events that are disrupting the world, I think that we'll still probably see pretty robust figures coming this Thanksgiving.
All right.
Oh, it's very, very true, Simon. And as people know, Black Friday was the day when retailers turned to profit, it got into the black, and that's how they got its name. So that's Black Friday. So thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your insights and, of course, seeing where AI and commerce are headed. So thanks, Simon.
Thank you so much. Enjoying that conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you both.
Well, Teresa, we're seeing AI pop in every place, and that level of ambient experience, the ability to actually make suggestions, dynamically price things, make suggestions, make people's lives easier, the whole recipe piece that Simon was talking about, very, very fascinating. So
absolutely. I wanted to predict what I want next.
It could get into the mind and predict who we're next. But speaking about who's next, we've got our amazing guest, Indy Cho. Welcome.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Indy. I'm the AVP of Data Products and Data Science at a small-known retailer that people may have heard about. It's called Costco.
I was going to wear my Kirkland T-shirt today, and I couldn't find it. I think it got swiped by one of my kids. That's how hot it is. So
they've got good taste.
Okay, so hey, Indy, with over 20 years of experience focusing on data and AI, you've done it in so many different industries. Now in commerce, talk about how new opportunities arise. Like, how do you think companies should view the power of data, Gen AI? How's it creating new opportunities, driving operational efficiency, getting to innovation?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, the first 20 plus years of my career were all in aerospace and defense. And, it's a lot of manufacturing, a lot of maintenance and support. And, there's some pretty clear use cases there. It was all about kind of driving as much productivity as possible. And I'll just give you a really quick example on the aerospace and defense side before I switch over to the retail opportunities. But over in aerospace and defense, I mean, one of the biggest opportunities that we were looking at was what was called fault isolation modules, right? And Ray, you fly around the world a lot. You know this, right? Everybody hates delays. And but did you know that when that little fault light comes on, there's got to be some technician who's opening up a book. And by the way, these books are about 3,000 pages of volume, and there's about 18 to 20 volumes, right, stacked in the back. And they got to follow this breadcrumb trail of what to do, right, in order to go fix that problem. We said, hey, you know what? This is something that we could absolutely throw machine learning and AI at the beginning and say, how do we optimize this, right? How do we get to the best answer as quickly as possible? And so when I think about that and that translating over into to where we are now, I think those are still problems that we live with on a day-to-day basis. There's always going to be process efficiencies, whether it's in supply chain and retail, whether it's in merchandising, whether it's in inventory allocation, sales forecasting, all those kind of mechanical processes. But I think the opportunity is going to be, I think it's going to really democratize a lot of decision making, right? It's going to allow people to kind of work at their own pace. The days of kind of centralized decision making are over. I think one of the things that makes Costco really successful is that it is very federated. I mean, you got a lot of things out there in the world, but that our corporate buyers will buy, but our different regions have a lot of autonomy as well. And I think and that's something we want to continue to promote. I think having good information available is going to be really critical for them to make even better decisions to connect with the members locally.
Well, that's fantastic. But from a retailer's perspective, what specific challenge do you foresee in when you're implementing AI, and how will this challenge be addressed now and in the future?
I think from a retailer's perspective, I think the question doesn't start with the technology. The question has to start with the ethos, right? And for example, we talk about price quite a lot in retail, right? Consumers are very price sensitive, and every retailer does what's called price comping, right? Which is they go out and determine, hey, there are two like products, and what are my competitors selling it at, and they try to get the best price. And a lot of companies, of course, are driven by profit, right? So there's dynamic algorithms out there that perform dynamic pricing models, and so you go onto a website, and you just don't know if you're getting the best price at the moment. All you know is that you're getting the best price against your competitor, right? And then they're kind of manipulating all those prices. We have a very different philosophy around how we do pricing because our ethos is very clear, right? We have this idea that we're going to provide the best member. We're not going to do all sorts of weird price manipulation and everything. And so I think it kind of starts with the ethos of where you want to be. I mean, could we, mark something up an extra penny or an extra 10 cents just to get some additional profit? Absolutely, we could do that, right? But I think what it leads to then is we lose trust with our members when we do that, right? And so I think the ethos becomes really the guidepost for what we're going to do with AI, right? If you don't have that to begin with, I think AI is just going to be something that's going to be really disruptive in a negative way for retailers because it's going to disrupt trust with the members and consumers.
That's a really good point on trust, Indy. I noticed recently that my hotel site, my airline site, if I don't flush the cookies, the price keeps going up every time I visit, right? And that's a very, very different ethos than what you're talking about. And it's amazing. Like when you start with a trust and a member focused model, you end up in a very different kind of scenario. This is also the same place as when you think about when you apply AI and when you actually apply the human touch. Where do you see that working together, where you're bringing these experiences together, having the AI experience, the human experience, and bringing that physical digital world together?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because I think the future isn't really going to be about AI, at least not for a long while, or we just kind of completely let the reins go. I think it's really going to be about curation, right? I think curation is going to be a new big buzzword that we're going to hear a lot about because it just doesn't get it right all the time. I mean, we think about what we're doing today, and we see some amazing work today with Adobe Firefly. I think that they're the kind of first movers out there in the market, really kind of talking about how you can use Gen AI to create any sort of graphical image that you want, right, to generate marketing materials. You could create amazing personalized marketing materials, but at the same time, I think we as humans kind of can differentiate what we see in front of us as being synthetic versus being somewhat curated, right? It's the same reason why we you can ask Gen AI to create a mashup of a Taylor Swift and Kanye song or something, whatever it is that you want. It's the same, but you also know that that's probably never going to happen, right? Like that mashup would never, ever happen. And so I think the future is going to be a lot about curation, because the content creation will be limitless. I think that's what Gen AI is going to give us, right? Access to information and access to content creation is going to be limitless. It's going to be about our ability to curate. So when we think about the images that show up in our e-commerce sites, whether it's advertising that we want to put into inline messaging as we kind of interact with members, perhaps like in transit when the product is in shipping and you're getting those notifications about when they arrive, or even a customer service call if they have to call because maybe they're missing a missing item. That never happens, of course, with us, right?
Never at all.
never at all. But those experiences, when they come online and they want to interact with the chatbot agent, do they know that they're actually interacting with a chatbot, right? An advanced AI, or if they're interacting with a human? I think these are going to be blended experiences for a really long period of time while we get things right.
Yeah, I think I like that. I think curation, I do believe that it's going to be a really big important. And I think that's what we'll see more. I totally agree with you on that, Indy. But I recently read at Costco an article that Costco uses data to connect with customers around food safety. Now, as a retailer, you have lots and loads of data, customer data. But do you feel today that retailers are fully leveraging data to enrich customer lives and provide better experience, or just some of them just scratching the surface?
I'll give you my opinion on other of other retailers, and I think it's a little bit of the Wild West, right? I think it's creating a lot of distraction, a lot of noise. I think they're overutilizing the data. They're not doing enough curation of it. And I think it kind of goes back to that conversation around ethos. It goes back to the trust. What's the goal? What's the objective? Just continuously, hammering my inbox with ads that are completely not relevant to me, not contextual. It's not valuable, and over time, it's just eroding trust. And guess what? The click through, the open rates, the click through rates, conversion rates for me are going to go down significantly. So I think that there's just a lot of almost I'd call it over zealousness around the use of consumer data. I think a lot of it is going to get back to figuring out how they want to, what kind of relationship do they want to have with me as a consumer, right? And I think we're thinking a lot about that as well. There's kind of a rule that we talk about, which is the don't be creepy rule, right? I think everybody's probably had that experience where you might be watching one of the ad-driven video services like a Hulu or whatever, and all of a sudden you see some ad about a conversation you never Google search, but you see an ad for something you might have talked about, and you go, "Gosh darn it! What service picked that up? Was it my Alexa or was it my Google Chat? Something fed that algorithm," and that gets creepy. And we want to make sure that we're not being creepy about stuff.
Yeah, you don't want Big Brother watching you.
Exactly.
Really, really good point there. So there's that fine line between personalization and creepy. But as we get to the digital area, the other piece that's really about when do we actually have that human touch? When do we actually improve that connection, right? As I said before, as you heard, right, we can fully automate something. We can augment the experience of a machine with a human to make sure we get the exceptions and patterns and understand why we break things or get things to level of precision. We can augment the humans with a machine to improve that decision making, improve that experience, or we can actually apply the human touch. For you, when you make those decisions, how do you determine when that occurs?
I think it's the experience that you want to create with that human touch, right? One of the things about Costco, when you go into the warehouses, right, is we talked about this before we started chatting here. You go in for a couple gallons of milk, and if you can walk away with just a couple gallons of milk, great on you. But
willpower.
Exactly. But fundamentally, we really kind of rely upon the treasure hunt. We rely upon the delight that members feel when they walk into the warehouse, right? And that's a really hard experience to replicate on a website, because I think e-commerce is built for a different type of experience. It's built for convenience versus delight, right? And so I think for us is figuring out how do we want to take that human curation to create delight as being the outcome, because otherwise, what can you do with it in an e-commerce if you have new merchandise that you want to expose to a member? Well, they can just simply search for what's new, right? There's literally a tab in most e-commerce websites that literally says what's new, and it just gives you the search filter of what's new. But if there was a button in there that said delight me, right? What would that look like?
That would be awesome. I mean, that whole notion of serendipity, that pleasant surprise of discovery, that ability to actually feel like you made that find. I mean, that's hard to replicate. So
exactly, and so that's a challenge. Is where do you find discovery and delight, in an e-commerce experience? And I think that's going to be where we have to drive the human curation, because we can create algorithms. We're doing it to some degree today, and I know a lot of other retailers are. You create what are called lookalike algorithms, right? So, if I like to buy, hot chocolate and chapstick and pecans or something like that, and then somebody else likes to buy similar things, but oh, by the way, they also like to buy, a peppermint bark. Hey, Indy, would you like to also buy some peppermint bark? Well, you know what? That works to some degree. And that's more of a concierge service, but it doesn't quite get you to delight yet.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's cracked that nut.
That's true. It's interesting to say that. If it was a button on a website that says "delight me," I'm concerned that perhaps the retailer or the brand might not want to hear the feedback. Because a lot of it is, do not send me stuff, do not track me, don't email me.
Right. Yeah. So there's a balance there for sure.
Definitely a balance. But looking ahead, what trends do you see or anticipate on the ongoing sort of evolution of this AI commerce? And how do you think that companies should strategically prepare and stay ahead of these new developments?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to, I think it fundamentally goes back to curation. So the thing that I think about is what are LLMs and Gen AI doing for us, right? They're really creating a tremendous amount of content that we've never had access to before. And so I really like what Simon said when he talked about accessibility. Right, that the Gen AI today, ChatGPT is accessible to pretty much anybody, right, who's got access to the internet. That's tremendous. But I also think that if you think about the film industry, it used to be that somebody probably says, "Hey, movies used to be fantastic," and then all of a sudden now there's movies come out all the time. Well, what changed? Well, it was the digitization of film, right? The film was incredibly expensive. You really had to make sure that you got that. That you're blocking right and the scene was right, the lighting had to be right. Now it's just keep the thing rolling. Just go get a new SD card and you can roll it, right? And I think data and content is the same way. I think Gen AI LLMs are creating this wealth of content, this unlimited amount of content, and we've got to make sure that we can curate it, because otherwise it's going to create a tremendous amount of noise, right, between retailers and consumers. And I think fundamentally that gets back to that disruption of trust. I think it creates a lot of friction. I think about, for example, the fact that when you go onto an e-commerce site, you should have a handful of really powerful, impactful images, product images. Would it be great if those product images were contextual and you could actually, have a product image that was contextual just to you? Yes, but what if you showed up on that site and every single time it changed? That would become highly abrasive at some point. So I think it's going to be all about curation and management of all that content as we kind of expand on implementing AI.
That's really important. And the whole notion of mindful curation is going to come up over and over again. And I think that's probably, it could be one of the big trends next year that I know you're definitely excited about. What else do you see in terms of other emerging trends that are popping up, especially, anything that you find intriguing or promising in the future of AI commerce?
I think the interaction, moving away from content creation, I think interaction is going to be really key, right? Customer sentiment is always going to be key, right? People buy from delight, which is an emotion, right? It is yes, of course, people have to buy the absolute necessities, the 2 gallons of milk that you came in for. But once again, right, I think in retail, right, we want people to buy because they really feel a connection to the thing that they want to purchase. And I think we're going to have opportunities through different interactions, whether that's just going to be through, today we might use clickstream data. I think we have access to a tremendous amount of information with different type of customer interaction through CRM. We've got different interactions through reviews and all sorts of other different touch points. And I think those listening posts are going to be really important for us to kind of understand and think about how we build relationships and continue that relationship with changes in trends. I mean, not to sound old or I'm not putting any kind of product down here, but the old idea of butterscotch in your pocket, right? I mean, maybe it's not that generation, right? Like there's probably Jolly Ranchers in your pocket now, or the next thing in your pocket, right? And so we do have to understand and interact and follow them. Now, for us, by the way, Costco is a merchandising company above everything else, and our buyers are the best in the world when it comes to that kind of stuff. So they follow those trends. But what we want to do is I think about how do I arm them with primary data from our members.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Buyers. All I can say is like the wine selection, the jewelry selection, the book selection, the food. It's ethnically tailored depending on what region you're in. That curation is part of the experience. And then there's consistency. Like I can go to any Costco this weekend and actually pick up pumpkin pie that I know it's going to be perfect. I mean, that is just the amazing thing.
There's a pumpkin cheesecake this year that I saw, which I'm excited to try.
Yes, the pumpkin cheesecake. So anyways, we're fans of Costco, and thank you for sharing some of those insights on AI and commerce. I think we're learning a lot about what can be done. And as Simon said earlier too, we're seeing the ability to actually do this on the fly as consumers and enterprises and brands figure out, what's the right balance. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me here.
Ray, you might be the most loyal and happy customer at Costco.
I've been a Costco customer since 1990, and I've been one of the biggest fans. But yes, we're really excited to have Indy here, and we'll definitely talk to our guests in a few minutes. So, summary: what did we learn today? What did you think? Wow,
so much. But there's two words that stay with me: curation. I think curation, management content, I think that's something that it was really going to stay with me. And I think that's something that Simon said about AI just becoming part of technology, just be embedded into everything we do. I definitely see that.
It is one of the most amazing things that is happening, that ability to personalization, to be able to do it as an ambient experience that just happens in the background, our ability to have it be mindful and work for us. I love that notion on ethos that, Indy was talking about, how the fact that they are member driven, and because they're member driven, it's all about supporting the member, not gouging the member, not harming the member, but actually building that trust. And then the thing that we learned from Simon, I thought was very interesting as well, was the fact that this is something that's happening right now. I mean, everyone's learning it on the fly, and it's really important to have guidance of people with Simon's stature and experience to help take us to the next level, because it's happening right now, and you don't want to fall behind.
Exactly. And I think because we're all learning at the same time, probably the next innovation might not come from the big tech company. It might just come from, like you said, a user sitting somewhere in Wisconsin.
Yep. It could be anywhere, and it could be happening at any point in time. And every brand and enterprise needs to know that.
Yes.
Well, this has been an amazing episode on AI and commerce. Teresa, thank you very much. This has been fun being your co-host. Thanks, everybody.